In the great forest I have mentioned so many times, I was standing before a peculiar panther. This creature was enormous, so big that I looked like a simple ant before it. In books, it wasn't something like this. In normal circumstances, this spirit black panther shouldn't be this big. Even though it was a blue-ranked creature, when I saw it from the other side of the lake, it definitely was smaller. Back then, I wasn't sure if it actually looked at me or not, but I had a doubt it did. Right now, the beast that just appeared before me and talked is something very different from anything I had met until now. Even though it wasn't an origin beast like Fern, the energy that I was currently feeling from it was relatively the same as them. A creature that was waiting for me, and something that I can't even fathom to gauge the power of. Standing here in this pressure was something of a trial itself. That's not your actual appearance, right? It was a female voice, and it contained power, dignity, as well as curiosity. Even though it was authoritative, I could feel the wisdom and interest for me just from those words. If not for my heart and the herbs that I took after parting ways with Fern, and were a bit stronger, I knew I would faint with no doubt. I instinctively knew that even if I used my appraisal skill on her, the only thing I get will be a headache and a scratching voice like Fern's time. Fern knew how to control her powers, and they weren't meant for fighting. She was a helper of the beings inside nature, but the creature before me was something of an entirely different stage. It was a predator, beast, hunter, and something that was an important part of the ancient Willow's ecosystem. If I missed something here, I would be lucky to have a normal death. But there was a question in my mind that popped up after hearing her question. This is a disguise. You're the first being to figure it out. My reply to it filled her with awe, and my eyes were genuinely sparkling. This was the first time someone had seen through Seals's skill. And, seeing that it is a special and powerful creature, I was admiring Seals even more. But I got a smirk before a normal reply from her. No, child. Even I can't tell you're using a skill. The noble master described your appearance differently, so it was just a guess. She paused and took a step closer to me, and, as soon as she took another step, her body started shrinking. I stood still, not fearing the ferocious aura that didn't change at all. I knew this situation wasn't dangerous now. By the time she stood before me, she was the same size that I remembered. She was still big, almost 3 meters in height, but she was smiling. To have a skill that even I failed to detect. Indeed, you're the one master talked about. I was shocked after hearing that even someone like her failed to detect the skill. Now, I had even greater respect for my dear partner. Thank you, Seals. I thanked her from the bottom of my heart to be with me. HM? For what? She asked in a puzzled voice. I never thought about it, but she never actually feared any of the powerful beasts we came across. Even now, she was admiring the unique beast before us with no fear or doubt or anything. Well, there wasn't anything to think too deeply about it anyway. Oh? Is this your familiar skill or something? Can I meet them? The Lady Jaguar asked with shining eyes. Yes, she is talking about you for a while now. I replied, and Seals came out from her sleeping mark. There wasn't much to do outside, so she mostly stayed inside. Looking at her sitting on my head in surprise, the jaguar closed her mouth. Not only you are special, but your partner also seems special too. Complimenting Seals, she turned around with no other unnecessary chat. He said you look quite good, so I wanted to check. It has been a long time since a human has entered these parts of the forest. She was walking away, and I was following her into the bright blue light ahead of us. From her tone and master word, I could tell that she was talking about the willow tree. The willow tree was an ancient tree, and having a powerful beast as its servant wasn't something unbelievable. But I was expecting something more from this encounter. I thought that I would have to pass some trials to get to the willow tree and fight some strong opponents. But a direct escort was not something I could refuse. The journey to this place wasn't easy, and I knew there won't be many things I could do if the jaguar attacked me. The willow tree already knew we were coming, and I had expected that much from an ancient tree that had a will of its own. I was excited to see such a dominant life form, and I was right to hope for something big. In a large open area before the enormous lake, A single tree stood tall without any difficulty. The tree was so big that the great banya tree was nothing in front of this. All I can see right now was a wall-like trunk and roots that were somewhat outside the ground. The tree itself held beautiful colors, and its shining, small leaves were something that increased its beauty. The blue light was almost blinding at first, but I managed to adjust my eyes to that bright blue light. It was already the time of sunset, but the area before me was something that was in eternal night. From the tree's size and shadow alone, it was able to block any sunlight down this area. This was magnificent, and looking at the tree alone explained the reason why someone so strong, like the Lady Black Panther, served it. I was only here for 2 reasons, maybe 3, but there were 2 things I must do here. Flowers, fruits, and, if possible, the soul essence and nectar. Nectar would be something I might personally have to collect, but that would be a problem for later. For now, I had to get that legendary fruit at all costs. Not that I can do anything stupid here. I was deep in thought when I heard a deep old voice in my mind. Welcome, lost child. A will is something more than an ability to talk and understand. It's close to the ability to think for themselves and others. Having a will is something like having artificial intelligence that can think about things as well as possess human-like emotions. Our emotions can be very good, bad, positive, and evil. Just like them, something possessing a will can be either good or evil. But, mostly, something with their own will within the world is good. To define good, we can say that they can use the power they possess to help others or rule over others. They can either improve everything within nature or just stay in a place created by themselves. Possessing a will was the same as being a higher life form that can think far better than normal humans about some particular things. There were some very famous things possessing wills that were famous in many books. In the Great Roxana Empire, there are 12 places with beings that possess a will of their own. And one of them is in the Imperial Academy. But those things weren't for me to think about for now. Looking at the tree that just spoke to me through telepathy like seals in astonishment, I answered, "Hello, Sir Willow Tree." I didn't know what type of greeting he might accept, so I just bowed my head and then looked at it. Yes. Greetings, little human. You can call me Lien, and you have already met Ace. She's a playful one, but don't worry. She's a good kitty. His grandpa-like voice was something that felt soothing to my mind. Even my heart was serene, more than it is in normal conditions. This ancient tree was nothing like what they wrote about them. A scary, ferocious, and deadly tree that devastated lands and ruled over them as if overlords of that land? This grandpa-like voice that seemed so welcoming and warm was nothing like what they wrote there. On top of everything, the area I was standing in had more vegetation than many other areas I had seen. And not only the area around this lakeside, but also the tree themselves were more beautiful than many other places I had seen. This was an ancient tree, meaning this tree was at least a millennium old. That was a long time, and just imagining that this grandpa was 1,000 years old was enough to make my eyes shine. Lien, an ancient willow tree that had lived for a long time, might also know how I can get out of this forest, right? You might think that I know the exit of this great forest, right? As if he has read my mind, he asked in a sorrowful voice. You don't. My heart sank at his unexpected voice. I had hoped that if I can somehow come here, this old tree might be able to help me somehow. I was ready to hear the denial, but I didn't know it would feel this bad. It is not like I do not know, child. But, you know? I shouted with hope-filled eyes. If he knew what I had to do to get out of this hell and get back to my parents, that was enough. Even if I have to cross hell. Alive can't cross hell, and just like them, not anyone can get out of this so-called hell. Now, I truly doubted that this tree can read minds. Not like it was something hard. Skills like them existed. But that wasn't the thing to think right now. All I have done until now was just run and jump from tree to tree. Even just a direction would help if it meant I can find the hell while being alive and cross it. Listen closely, little child. What I'm about to tell you is something very few know about this forest. The tree suddenly got to the point, bombarding my mind with questions. Why was he suddenly so serious? What did he see in me to tell something very few creatures of this forest would know? What was so important that this many creatures of this forest were unknown about many things in it. Even though this forest was larger than the size of 2 empires combined, what was the reason we knew very few things about this place? This was strange in itself, and I had no idea why it was like this. But the seriousness in his words was unprecedented. I cleaned my mind and looked at the tree before me with total focus. The great forest of Kamet is divided into a total of 6 parts. I don't know about the situation right now, but what I know was always true and was still the same the last time I confirmed. For different races that are the most powerful among any race in this forest rule the 4 cardinal directions. North, the forest of Dryads, a place where the beings that are caretakers of this forest reside. As Dryads, they can freely move through normal trees and plants as spirits. A place of unrivaled natural energy. East, the mountains of Golems, a race of earth and some of the most powerful beings in terms of pure strength. They are creatures that love absolute quiet, and not even a bird dares to enter that place. West, the icy region of the Great Forest. Fully covered by ice and thick snow, ice elves rule this area. A race that's closest to nature and is master of the ice itself. Though they are from the elf race, they do not like the company of any other race, and they despise other humanoid races the most. In case of something like you step into their area, they would shoot you dead before even knowing. And remember that I know just how strong you are right now. Southern regions of molten lava. Some of the hottest places on this continent, and the last remaining home of a race called Flameborns. Even though they are some of the most friendly and good-natured races, because of their rare habitat and natural temperature that goes above the explosions, not many can interact with them. You will have to have an extremely high affinity with the fire element, and seeing you possess such a high affinity with all natural elements, increasing one would be an enormous problem. Your life might be at risk. These 4 of the cardinal directions that have their exits were: you can't exit as a human. Aside from these small parts, the biggest 2 parts are the central region, where we are in, and the area that mostly covers the Great Forest. And the dark forest that is just ahead of here. A place where corrupted beasts that might be outside of saving conditions lurk freely. The darkest and most dangerous area, and possibly the only exit there might be for you. I don't know what thing is there across the dark forest, but I have heard there was a human that managed to pass through this forest somehow and managed to exit this place. But that happened 600 years ago, and that human was extraordinarily strong. But you, child, are nowhere near strong enough to cross that place. So, I can't help you with how to exit this place. In the end, the tree released a helpless sigh. Why was this tree so considerate of me? I didn't know that one, but I sure knew one thing. Thanks for the warning, ancient Willow Lien, but I had already decided on going to that forest. I know I'm not strong enough, but if there is any hope, I will take it. I answered in a confident voice. It was not even a question of not going there. I was confident, and I must survive there no matter how long it took me. The look in my eye was enough to tell him that I was determined. Looks like you have made up your mind, young boy, he helplessly said, and a small light appeared before my eyes. The light that started from the tree branch got brighter and, after a bit, the old voice once again rang in my head. I'm but an old tree that has little time to live. It filled his voice with grief, and I can feel the deep emotions in his words from that small sentence. The feeling differed from when I felt Seals's emotions. This was deep, sorrowful, and more than anything, it contained happiness. Maybe the happiness of finally seeing the end of something? I wouldn't know that one, but I knew what was going on right now. A capsule-like, or more of a chestnut-like fruit, with a bright, shining golden color was floating before my eyes. This diverged from when I received the golden tear from the deer, and this contained a lot more refined energy than arcane. Looking at this made my whole body warm and somewhat raised my heartbeat. This wasn't only excitement but also fear. This fruit was dangerous if not handled correctly or by a strong enough person. The energy it contained was greater and more refined than mana and even arcana. This particular type of energy was something only time could produce. A refinement that was so natural and still felt so unreal that one might not be able to believe what was happening in the mere presence of it. Mind, willpower, and a significant amount of concentration were required to be standing right now, but it was worth the effort. Amrita. Natural energy was born from long, slow, and constant processing time. Few beings produced this, and that was the very reason it was called a legendary fruit. And the fruit was wrong to be called just a magnificent gift. It was a shield, a protective layer in your life that can save you if you are on the verge of death. Something that was almost legendary and so mystical it seemed unreal. Aside from that, it increased the healing powers of the body it belonged to. Though it was as big as my head right now, the person possessing it can change its form to whatever they preferred. Having this will guarantee escape from a dangerous situation, and it would be the greatest lifesaver in cases of something like that magic blocker ent appeared. This wasn't everything, and many things were still unknown about these fruits, and I will know now that I had them. You have the qualification to possess this treasure, little child. But remember, this is not just some protection shield that will save your life. He stopped and addressed me again. What is your as well as your companion's name, little human? This was an unexpected question, and I didn't know why this grandpa tree was asking something like this so suddenly. My name is Axion Cromit, and this is Celestine, I answered, and a satisfying sound entered my head again. You have a beautiful name that shows your parents' love, as well as the name you gave your companion, which shows how you consider her a gift from Havens. He paused and, without anything extra, continued from where he stopped. This is a fruit as well as a seed that can grow another tree like myself. Just hearing this widened my eyes in surprise as I held the fruit with both hands. Having a legendary fruit was one thing, but something that contained a seed of an ancient tree was something more than just some simple gift. The situation had turned into something very different from just receiving the qualification of the noble tree. Now, this grandpa was asking me to do something for him in return for this miraculous fruit. I do not know if you will manage to escape this forest and reunite with your family that they have separated you from, but from my experience in nature, I feel you can do it. Wow! I gasped in my mind as I continued hearing him. Ancient trees were called ancient because they were scarce and only a few survived long enough to be called ancient. The willow tree before me had lived more than I could think, and that very being was saying it had a hunch I would be able to escape this place. Even though it was just his hunch, and I already knew I would escape from here, his words reassured me. This was enough to erase a tiny doubt that lingered in my heart, and now I was more confident than ever. But, remember this, young one. Whatever happens, even if you are on the verge of death itself, persists. Resist the temptation to give in, even if you don't have one. The path may open itself to you. This old grandpa was now going into something cliché, but I liked what he just said. This was honest, and I felt this would be a smooth journey than what I had. A smooth in a dark way, of course. The place ahead was a dark forest, and just like its name, it was eternally dark. As if always at the night, this place was a forever nightlife, and even from this distance, I could feel the small but constant cold air. But giving up was never a choice. It has already been 15 months, and probably they were a bit better than before, but the worry and longing would never leave their heart. I had to go back however early as I can, but being careless would never be an option. More than anything, I had to preserve my life, and to do that, this fruit was some of the greatest sources to me. I hope you find a suitable place to raise the child that will bear from the seed inside that fruit. His voice contained deep sincerity, and I could feel that again. Was this tree's special ability or something? Like how Fern could make others feel any emotion, this one can transmit his every emotion. It might be possible, but that wasn't something I had to think about for now. How long do you have? I tried asking through my mind as I did with Seals, hoping he could hear it. I didn't know if he had told the other beings and Ace about his death, which was not that significant to me, but I knew for the creatures within him it would be devastating. A will's death signified only the death of the consciousness that it interacted with others, meaning he will lose his voice and will never be able to speak again, which was as good as death for a great tree like him. After losing the will, the shell-like tree will lose its eternal life and start aging. And, after some time, the majestic tree that had lived for thousands of years will become one with nature. same as one's soul integrating into nature. This would be death, as well as something that would influence this particular part of the forest greatly. Many things would change, and there might even be fights for this part of the forest. This area was already big, and seeing the resource-rich area, any being would love to make their sanctuary in this place. Looking at the other side of this lakeside, a worried expression clouded my mind. If a war starts in this part of the forest, the other parts will crumble too, and it might also drag Fern and her family into this meaningless fight. The death of this tree had suddenly become a significant concern to me. But, thankfully, the next words from the ancient Willow Lien made my heart calm. Do not worry, child. There are still more than 10 years left for my fall. And even after that, my body will take hundreds of years to be one with Mother Nature. His voice was cheerful, and I was happy after hearing those words. Thanks. A happy sigh escaped my mouth as I put my hand on my beating heart. It was strange, but just in some days, Fern had become my heartfelt friend. Her cute, silly, dignified, and dumb self was something I would miss forever. If something possibly happened to her, I didn't know what I might do or how I would react. Thankfully, she wasn't weak and had a powerful family supporting her. They had something to protect, just like many creatures I could see on the high tree branches with my mystic eyes. This was something amazing any time I saw this. An enormous tree that looked like a great wall, and on top of such places, creatures from small to colossal size lived. And I had the chance to be someone to grow the same magnificent tree as this. Just thinking about it made my heartbeat rise again. Good. Now, child, I do not have anything more to say. If you want, you can rest here for the day. The willow tree offered with a warm voice, but I had to decline this offer. No. I can't waste any time now that I know where I have to go. But I hesitated for a moment, and after gulping a mouthful of saliva, I continued. Now that I have received the fruit, I know it's rude, but can I have the nectar, flowers, and that soul drop thing if you possibly have it? I scratched my head, but then I heard a burst of quiet laughter from behind me. You sure are something, little monkey. Even after receiving the greatest gift from my master, you ask for small things like them. Ace, the black panther that was quite far away from the start, walked close and laid down before the tree. Ho ho ho. Ace, this is indeed surprising to me, too. This would indeed be surprising to hear, but then again I should get whatever I can. And I knew the willow tree won't deny it. Very well. You can have these flowers and nectar too. As for the soul drop, ancient trees mostly infuse them with fruits that they grant, meaning you already have it as the fruit. With that, small needle-like flower branches slowly descended, or spiders took them down with their threads. In a small container made of wood, a darker shade of nectar than the great Benia tree also fell with them. This was an immense gain, and if I try, even I might be able to make low-quality medicine with these flowers too. Though they were fantastic materials, I knew nothing about making the medicines mentioned in the books. I knew the basic process like smashing it, mixing some other things, and things like that. Few books recorded the use of these flowers in detail, and it was a trade secret more than anything, so information about it wasn't disclosed to just anyone outside the capital. It was good, and I had gained even more resources to use in the dark forest. That place was a nightmare in this hell, and from what I heard regarding it before I departed from the willow tree, it wasn't something good at all. Corruption. A natural phenomenon that occurred because of extreme negative emotions. When any being with such emotions that possesses a unique type of energy like mana loses themselves and malignant energy overwhelms them. This energy was something that I saw on the skeleton knight before Fern cured it. Mainly, only divine power could cure the initial stages of corruption, but Fern's abilities were special. The divine energy would work on the whole body and soul, but the ability Fern had worked on emotions themselves. And, more than anything, the divine energy was death to undead creatures, so even if they wanted to, they can't cure them. So, once again, Fern was special. With a sigh, I looked at my new pendant. Ancient Willow's Gift. A gift received from an ancient tree upon acknowledgement. Increases mana regeneration, mana pool, strength, agility, and concentration by 30%. Summons a protective shield every time the owner acts in. is in a critical situation. Once every year, the count stacks as the gathered energy in the core increases. It contains a seed of an ancient tree inside it, and only the owner, Axion, can call it out. When released in authentic form, increases mana and the natural healing speed of creatures within a 10-meter radius. If this isn't a cheat item, I don't know what is. I smiled as I jumped on a tree branch. I had checked many things from my inventory after getting the appraisal skill, and it shocked me to see just what things I had picked up. I was right with most of them, as they were herbs that would be useful to me, but many of them were dangerous poisons. This wasn't as potent as the pink mushroom, but many normal-looking flowers and plants were highly poisonous when processed or ingested. Some were very special flowers that I will need on some special occasions in the future. And the nectars that I received from both trees only showed normal information that I knew. Well, everything was wonderful, and I finally found out that the core I got from Ghost was actually yellow ranked. This was some of the greatest things for me, as it meant I had killed a yellow ranked being with that low power. Having light attributes was some of the best things. Now, I had everything I would need in that forest of darkness, and I knew one thing. "Let's go, seals," I said as I stepped on the dark soil. This was strange and interesting, as the two different color soli were being divided by a dark red line of grass. This was as if the two parts of the forest had agreed that this was their area. And stepping into this place also meant that I was stepping into a hell that might be the last place for me. Jumping on a tree branch, I started moving forward like I always did. The trees in this area were smaller compared to the green forest, but this area was thicker with trees, and all of these trees were of dark colors. Mostly black, dark brown, gray, dark blue, and some were darker shades of red. I had never seen or read anything about these trees, and the creatures weren't in sight either. In the green forest, there were always tiny insects, birds, and animals, but this place was devoid of that. I was only able to see thanks to my night vision spell of Tier 1. Thanks to the golden fruit, or golden nut would be the name I would call it. I was much stronger than I was yesterday before receiving this fruit. Well, calling this thing a fruit was something quite not right. It was a solid thing, like the pearl that Perry the hippo gifted me. It would be most appropriate to call this an artifact than a fruit. Just seeing the detailed status window of this cheating thing was enough to warm my heart. That was it, but the cold air in this forest was the creepiest thing. A slow, icy wind produced a creepy melody that seemed like something crying. It was almost as if someone was really. This one wasn't wind. I stopped, and Seals understood it. We turned into a black tree branch and stayed still to see what that thing just now was. It was getting closer, and it was getting more human-like, and most probably it was a female cry. I had a bad feeling about this one, and after a moment I understood why the ancient willow was also called this forest. A forest of death. This crying sound was more like screaming. Screams of a woman, and more than anything, I could feel the great pain in them. I had a bad feeling just from hearing them, and my heart was beating faster than it ever had. Almost on the verge of jumping out. Even though I was disguised as a tree branch, the dark pressure of this presence was negative. "Master, what the hell is that?" Seals asked when a humongous figure floated towards the area before us. This was a presence that I felt from the mama bear, but this was dark, sticky, and angry. The sorrow, dread, and anger it contained were something that only send one name to my mind. A female ghost who has lost someone dear to her. Some of the very dangerous undead monsters, and something that only seek revenge from whatever it sees. Banshee. Some creatures were born because of corruption, and many of them were already recorded in books. The only thing that wasn't mentioned in books was that this process is called corruption. Maybe this was some sort of secret or something that normal books shouldn't contain. This was my first time seeing a corrupted creature anyway, and, from anything it could have been, it was a screaming ghost. The sound waves from her voice were something that can blast a normal human like a popping balloon. But thankfully I could hold on to them. My strong physic and mana inside my body made this ear-piercing sound bearable. But this was still not that good. Appraisal. Race Flame Fairy. Corrupted. Strength. 142. Dexterity. 132. Stamina. 121. Magic power, 124. Intelligence, 76. Skills, screams of agony, sorrow of past, astral body, void eyes, warning of death, shapeshift, fear of the battlefield, undead's wreath. The hell? I gasped as I studied those numbers and skills. Just the numbers alone were enough to send shivers down my spine, and the unknown skills this had were strong. But more than anything, when I used this skill, this corrupted spirit looked in my direction, still screaming her heart out. This was something that I thought was only possible by high-ranking creatures, but this ghost was that strong? Probably because it was a spirit and not a full body of flesh and blood? Yes, that might be the biggest reason, but what was the reason it started floating towards me? My heart was already beating fast, almost jumping out of my chest, and this lady was constantly walking toward me. This female voice, piercing, heavy with anguish, made me shudder as the sound traveled through my spine and penetrated the base of my skull. This sound seemed enough to wake up the dead itself. This woman had a pale white body. Her jet black hair seemed as if a threadbare cloak. They were long, knotted, and wild and flowed down her thin shoulders and brushed the ground. She was floating in the air, and her hair was something that looked special. Her face was also pale, but strangely enough, when her mouth was closed, she was pretty? But that can't be said when she opened that sharp teeth-filled mouth like some monster every few seconds. Her face, when screaming, was waxy and pale. Her skin would stretch to the point I could see every gruesome detail of that skull beneath. From time to time, she grinned, and those black teeth were like death itself. This was horrible, and she was constantly coming in this direction. But this was a bit different. A banshee was a creature that mourned death. Appearing on the battlefields or before someone's death, this fairy mourned the death. And this one before me only looked like a banshee. From the name in the appraisal to the bad feeling of death, these were a bit different from what I knew. But those weren't the things to think about right now. This thing was now just a few meters ahead of me, and I didn't know what to do now. Taking a deep breath, I calmed myself down. This banshee or fire fairy or whatever it was dangerous. The very first creature that I saw in this forest was something like this. And it hadn't even been a day. And what things would happen when actual night falls? That was just terrifying to think, and right now, the danger seems to finally go away. The banshee-like thing came as close as 3 trees in front of me and then screamed again. Maybe corruption can turn beasts into something else, but the situation I just escaped now spoke for itself. Passing this forest would be a bigger thing, and I should just forget about sleeping peacefully. The sound of the banshee going away from here was calming my heart. Not healthy. I was feeling somewhat dizzy. The death fairy was now gone, and my head started hurting. Looking at her departing figure, I warned Seals that was worried for quite a while now. Worried, not afraid or anxious, just worried about me. There will be many things here like this, Seals. Unknown, known, familiar, unfamiliar, anything might pop up here. But there was no need to worry as long as we maintained our disguise. No beast under at least indigo rank should be a problem. And the appraisal skill. I had to use that mindfully, or else something like now will happen and I might get caught by that thing. Like most appraisal skills, this one sends some of the energy to scan the targeted thing. Some might be able to feel the disturbance in the overall energy flow of their body. If something like this banshee or similar beast appears, it will be up to me to appraise or just stay still for it to disappear. Let's go, Seals, I said warmly. If not for her being an important part of this story's plot, I might have died. Yes. And as expected, her reply was full of anguish. She was powerless aside from creating these disguises. With a small, helpless sigh, I jumped onto another tree with my silent steps. I had started with a demon in this hell of a forest, and now I will start with this bringer of death as my new start in this forest. But I knew this will be uneventful and slow, unlike the Green Forest. If I were some author writing a novel, I would put some time skips, as the main objective in this dark forest is to survive and reach the other side. There should be something, a path, a new place, or at least someone else to guide me to the exit of this place. I hope I hoped with all my heart, mind, and soul that this is the last part of being in this forest. It has been a year since I entered this dark forest. Yes, that's it. A year has already passed, and I was still in this place unknown when I will be able to get out of here. It has been a long time, almost 2 years and 6 months since I entered this forest. Thinking about my family, they would most probably be better than what I left them in. My dear sibling would already be 2 years old and, hopefully, far better than me. A normal child would also be more difficult to take care of than me. A normal child, a normal family, happiness, and warmth. I had every one of these, and I was the happiest I had ever been with them. But what about now? What did I do wrong to be separated from them like this? Was I some fantasy novel protagonist or something? I ask myself this silly question every once in a while, and the only answer I can give to myself is, maybe I am. All this difficulty, all these problems, all these monsters running after me every time I start with something like this. Yes, monsters running after me just like right now. Ok, dude. I'm nowhere near your strength. Please spare me. I pleaded to the silver wolf of yellow, rank corrupted, that suddenly started chasing after me. Like, what did I do wrong for this puppy to chase after a little old me? Is picking up a skill stone from its prey something to chase after? And for the whole day on top of that? For God's sake. It was already night, and there was no mana left in me to spare to you. Master, I can see the open area ahead of us. Seals shouted in her normal voice, which hadn't changed at all. Still that childish and still cheerful, and scathed and indifferent as ever. I was now 9, and there were many things I had done all the time I had been in this dark forest. From collecting herbs, killing some plausible targets, and making sure I survive no matter what. That was all I did. Many times here I wanted to eat something nicely cooked, like the last feast we had. But, no. All I got was some briefly cooked meat, fruits, and grass herbs I had. Though I had some cooked food from our party, I had to take everything slowly. Saving them and eating in good, peaceful, and safe areas was the best action. I increased my stats a lot, and now I had some new skills too. Status window. Name, Axion Cromit. Age 9. Strength, 74. Dexterity, 78. Stamina, 81. Magic power, 90. Intelligence, 93. Luck, 49. Charm, 46. Skill, energy circulation, quickstep, appraisal, shadow dive, mana vision, shadow curtain, energy burst, stark triangle. Origin skill, Sun's Blessing, Intermediate Mastery. Mystic Eyes, Stage 1. Dynamic Heart, Stage 1. White Crack, Stage 1. The numbers were now high. High enough that I knew I would reach Tier 3 by next year. Though my situation right now wasn't that good as a corrupted yellow ranked beast was chasing after me. What can I do? This fellow had hunted a different yellow ranked beast by himself easily in the best condition. He was a predator, and I had already checked his buff stats that seemed unreal to me, considering his mana was still in the range of a yellow ranked beast. He was strong. Very strong that I had to use many spells just to stall time and steal the orange skill stone that was clearly visible from the tree I was on. I wouldn't have taken a risk like that, but that was a skill stone, you know? Something so precious that even this wolf was happy to get it. Normally, few beasts could absorb a skill stone, but this fellow was so lucky that he got something that anyone can absorb and learn. But he was a corrupted beast at the core and didn't need this thing. Even if it could have it, there was no way a fully corrupted creature on the verge of demonization can use this. So it was best for me to have it. I learned many things in my time in this place. Though there were mostly corrupted, demonic beasts, there were many normal beasts too. I had learned many things from them as they were corrupted or demonic beasts, and there was a higher chance that they could give cores. When an energy beast corrupted by negative energy accepts these negative energies, they turn into a demonic beast. And so, I now had 4 corrupted cores resting inside my dimensional white crack. 2 were red ranked, 1 was orange, and I didn't want to say it, but 1 was green ranked. A green ranked, corrupted mana core. Though I wasn't the one that hunted it, That enormous, dead body was something that I won't forget. I can't forget it even if I wanted to. It was a dead troll, a creature that is known for its superb regeneration abilities. It was an already corrupted creature, and it was a fact that I understood after seeing that sight, that corruption is ultimately death, if not accepted. A death that would not only drive you to the verge of losing everything, but also something that would devastate a large part of forest. That sight, that red, blue, and green sight of a living creature's insides, cannot forget it. It was a curse, a powerful curse that could turn creatures into something unsightly or something that was not an energy beast at all. It would devour them from inside, and your soul will become so unstable that at one point, you will lose all control over your body and then run a rampage. You will kill yourself without even knowing what happened to you, but the death would be painful that hell would pity them. This was a small power burst, and the end result of it was the most painful and unsightly, gruesome death possible. Soul was the most important in any living and some undead. It would hurt worse than hell to just have your soul touched. But the feeling of being cut infinitely, crushed, burned, poisoned, and every terrible pain possible was the end result of a fully corrupted creature. From what I had seen in this forest concluded many of my answers.
Corruption.
A natural phenomenon that can cause any energy beast with extreme negative emotions to turn corrupted, or ultimately, demonic beasts. It was the same as what I had read about the demonic beast in a little detail. Those demonic creatures were not part of this nature at all, as the destruction was their instinctual role in this world. At first, they would be sane, but when going berserk, they are nothing more than catastrophe. But they all had even more painful ending. That aside, I also saw something that was quite interesting. Soul illness happened when a powerful entity invested most of its energy into cursing someone, like what happened with Fern. I was sure that whatever thing did that to her was at least indigo-ranked demonic beast. I had seen a bird monster do something like that to a small creature. It was amazing to see, and that bird, Deadmana Demon Owl, a green, ranked creature, was a creature I had never heard about. I knew about it through appraisal, but it was my first time seeing something like that. What it was doing was ominous, as if a demon was doing it. But I was at least sure that there were no actual demons here. But let's get away from this one first, I said, and jumped on a tree with a metal arrow prepared in my hand. I had gained new skills, but there were rarely any chances to use them. Well, I had many things I created in this free time I was here. A metallic arrow made from the long nails of the brown rabbit I killed a long time ago. This was a special material, and I didn't know how to use it properly, but after barely keeping my life in this hell, I could learn many things. I had seen the unthinkable here, and more than anything, I have been to death many times that my previous fights were meaningless. Fortunately, I had seals and I could keep going because of my special heart. I didn't know if I could survive here without them, but I was sure lucky to have them. This arrow resulted from my self-taught, experimental, and past knowledge. I released the arrow, and it vanished from the bow like magic with no sound. This was a solid arrow, and it vanished even when this yellow-ranked creature was looking at it. The wolf stopped, and his ears moved a bit as if to detect something. 3 arrows struck the ground, and the wolf roared angrily. The arrows were fatal, and from the glowing enchantments on them, and the wolf could feel the fire element. This was reasonable, as it was a demonic beast now, a full corrupted beast with heightened senses. But unfortunately for him, this wasn't the end. They were arrows I shot just after the metal arrow, and as we looked deep into others' eyes, he flinched in shock. I could control my smirk, but this bastard sensed it. "Too bad you were a little late," I replied, and took out a quiver full of arrows. These were normal, but the one that I shot at first was no normal thing at all. It was a precious arrow that took even me months to finish. The materials used in it were precious, and each one of them was the same as a red core's worth. That was precisely the reason I only had 6 such arrows. The beasts with Fern had gifted me beast cores, too. There were exactly 6 red-ranked and 2 orange-ranked ones. But those were used in this past year I had spent in this forest. I had to survive life or death battles. create things to survive, and, on top of everything, get strong to face more beasts. There was this powerful attack skill that I had to use with an energy core to save me from a ferocious corrupted rat. That thing is not something I want to recall. Looking back at the wolf with a smirk, a sharp sound enters our eyes. Boom! The arrow fell on the exact spot the wolf was standing, and then an explosion echoed in the surrounding. There was no reaction from the forest, as this was the dark forest. Noise was a common thing in this place, and unlike outside where beasts were attracted, they quietly emptied the area they stood in from voices like this. I was fortunate, but this bastard that ran after me for the entire night wasn't lucky at all. This one explosion was the perfect version of the one I had used against the special ent that attacked me. A real missile with pure power output. Something that can blow up the whole red-ranked beast. This was a success, and the wolf was alive. The beast howled and stood up with its half-burned body. An unsightly body that I was now accustomed to seeing. I knew this was going to happen, and so I started the rain of arrows. I used quickstep and shadow dive consecutively, so the burden on my mind was increasing. But it was bearable. The arrow blast had already weakened this wolf, and from my detection magic, there was nothing in the area. There was a clear area some distance away, so I had to stop this one to reach there. He had chased me all the way for hours, so I didn't think he had any plan of letting me get away. This was a ferocious beast, and I had no mercy to spare for him. It shouted in pain and then, after more than 20 arrows, fall to the ground. Arrows contained poison on the tip, so there was no way it could stand more than them. But still, this yellow-ranked beast was definitely commendable to have put me through such hell. Thud. The wolf lifelessly falls to the ground as the moon fully took its place in the sky. Not that it was bright to begin with. This dark forest was always night, and I was thankful to have the Mana Vysen skill. I knew this was a day from the unique lights, and the moon always carried special blue rays with him. Or her. Moon was a lady according to religion. The goddess Moon, an entity so important that they prayed to her as one of the most famous religious gods. Why, am I even recalling these when there was so much to do? Seals. I called out, and she did her job. We can now constantly change according to our surroundings as if we are invisible, so it was even more dangerous that this wolf could keep up with us. He had a sensing skill, and we were still not at the level of hiding our presence completely. But we were successful in killing a tough opponent after exhausting it and putting in more than necessary resources. The beast was dead, and it had no energy core or skill stone. Poor bastard. I looked at it indifferently and walked away. Thankfully, I was an adult with experience in these things, or else no child or normal person could survive this hell. Just being grateful for being alive was a tough thing. Jumping on the tree, I reached the rare open area in this dark forest. As trees densely covered this forest, open places were extraordinary. Open areas meant two things: a group or garden of flowers, or a dreadful sight that would make you faint. It filled the first place with unexpected rare herbs and magnificent flowers. I had found some very rare things that were able to survive in this environment, and many unknown ones were special to dark places like this. The second one was misfortune's encounters that you would pray you hadn't seen at all in your whole life. I had seen this sight like that one when I found that green corrupted core. It was a curse that I remembered everything. That place, that sight, and my calmly beating heart even at then was something I knew not even an adult knight who have seen countless deaths could handle. And, to my utter bad luck, this was the second one. Master, don't. It's late, Seals, the thing had already entered my eyes. Pool. A word that would bring forth an image of a place filled with clear water. Clear, blue, or transparent water. A place of joy and fun. Somewhere, many people play with bright smiles on their faces. A warm, cheerful atmosphere. This place contradicted that picture perfectly. A red pond, crimson red of blood. A place filled with corpses of dead beasts. Big, small, and various body parts floating in the pond, even some heads with still open eyes. There were perfectly cut heads, limbs, and organs, but more than anything, every one of them was a creature with red blood. The place was still, and there was no smell. Even while standing just some distance away from this, some white flowers surrounded the pool. The flowers were, once again, a contradiction to this pool of blood. Pure white flowers of light, attribute, dahlili, flowers that are used in religious ceremonies. The gruesome scene before me was more devastating than I can imagine right now, and I knew this was going to be one of my ugliest memories. This was horrendous, something that was the work of a devil, if not the death itself. Why would you gather something like this in a place with this kind of environment? And why would the light attribute flowers grow perfectly in an environment of death? Who created this thing and for what reason? To grow flowers? Or to eat the rotten flesh? I wanted to understand the reasoning behind this thing, but I also just wanted to run away from this place. This was already night, and the things I was seeing right now weren't something I could do without my special vision. I had seen this shit, and now, there was no way I would forget it. Even with the shining flowers around it, this was more devastating than I could ever imagine. The area was clean, and it was nighttime in this dark forest of eternal night. And now, something was bubbling up inside this pool of flesh and blood. Master? Seals asked in utter confusion, as we looked at the creature that walked out of this pool of blood. It wasn't just a creature, but, let's say, more like a large group. I was just as confused about all this as her, maybe more than her. I knew these creatures very well. Maybe they were creatures I knew the most about. Some of the most mysterious, as well as a common group of energy beasts. Something that ranked from most basic, unranked creatures to divine beasts. A creature that could hold any elemental affinity, any type of skill, or sometimes special abilities that might come close to Seal's or Fern's abilities. These were the creatures that could adapt themselves to nature and their environment. A creature that was used by humans in many ways that it would seem parts of their daily life. They were abundant in nature outside the center of the great forest because of their natural division ability. Yes, the creatures before us right now were indeed slimes. The best targets for newbies and scariest enemies of dungeon explorers. Something that did self-reproduction in the form of cell division or something like self-cloning. They were endless monsters in some places, numbering even in hundreds at a single spot. They were a type of beast that was even grown in large numbers by other races. If we say they were the same as chickens in this world, it would be true in some aspects. Not only could we use them as food, but we can also use them in many unique ways. Like fire attribute slimes could be used as an oven or fireplace, we could use water attribute slime as an endless source of water, and so on. Creating attribute-specific slime was artificially difficult, but it wasn't uncommon. Noble houses who liked fun things like them specially ordered for them. This was on and on, but the situation before me right now was something special. Slimes were mostly normal creatures of no attribute. But slimes found in this great forest were something different from what the outside world knew. Though I hadn't seen a single one in my almost 2 years of stay in this place, Seals had once encountered such a being. They were ferocious beings that could digest anything. Giant creatures that sounded larger than the green, ranked creatures we had faced. I had no doubt that can be that big, as most of them could mutate and in the process, fuse to make a unique creature than their normal shapeless selves. Being practically immortal with their core intact, they were forces of nature. Their special racial skill and most probably a special stat adaptation allowed them to adapt to anything they wanted. And, in this magical forest and the environment with dense mana, they had higher intelligence than many normal creatures. According to legends, slimes born from nature directly with pure energy bodies were mystical creatures. Something that held a human-like intellect and was destined to reach the ranks of divine beasts. The current slimes alive are all descendant of primordial slimes, and that is believed to be the reason they can fuse their bodies and become one aside from reproduction. Some theorize that they have the same origin, and that is the reason they can fuse to make a new entity. But those were just stories. The creatures before me were 9 blobs of red flesh. They were blood red, and from the way they jumped out of the pool of blood, seemed a natural thing for them. They were in a shape of a blob, unlike most of the shapeless, fluid-like slimes. I can see the shining core inside their dense, bloodied bodies, and all 9 of them were now wiggling. They jumped closer, and then the shaking intensified. Their outer bodies started combining and, after a minute, they were fully combined as one giant blob of flesh. The original pool had almost emptied after these blobs came out, and now, it looked even more gruesome. They gathered the limbs of dead creatures that seemed quite old in this place. I had no idea if they did all this or not, but this was indeed a special thing to see. The slimes were mutating into a new form and becoming a new creature before our eyes. This was a rare spectacle, and there was no way we would miss this chance. Master, they are becoming one with each other, right? Seals asked innocently, and I answered with no other thought on my mind. Yes, they are becoming one with each other. They were creature. Then they did it and became one with each other, and now, this will create a new beast. I was sincere when I said that, so she understood what I was saying. We looked as the wiggling of the new giant slime continued, and then the slime started rolling around. The flowers around the pool of blood started disappearing into this blob of blood, and then, after consuming several such rare flowers, it started emitting a bright light. The light was blinding, but I was seeing the process perfectly while using my mystic eyes and mana vision. The core inside the creature was changing from triangular to a normal sphere. This phenomenon was something to look forward to for all the mages and humans that lived in nature, but I never thought I would regret this decision so much. Curiosity killed the cat. Mutation, a phenomenon where a beast or group of beasts transform from the core nature they hold. This is a process that happens under different circumstances. Slimes and common rats are the best species of monster that explains this process. Slimes can gather and become one entity because their base properties are always the same. A membrane, fluid body, and a nucleus at their core. These creatures mold their bodies to the environment for short periods and do their best to survive in them. The process of mutation differed from creature to creature, and the slimes before me were a unique case. At first, they were blood slimes, kind that I had never heard about. All 9 of them gathered body parts of dead creatures from their surroundings, explaining the lack of creatures here. Individually, they were orange, ranked creatures. Slimes being that high rank was a fucked up thing, but what can we expect from hell like this? 9 orange, ranked creatures made this horrible sight, and then, to stabilize the negative energy from the blood and flesh of the dead creatures, they planted those white flowers. It should now be common knowledge that dead creatures produce dead mana and negative energy. And the pure creature like slimes might not be able to handle or produce perfect dead mana like dead mana spider even after mutation because of their lack of physical and mental fortitudes. These somewhat intelligent creatures just took the dead beings, threw them in that pond for many days, and planted those white flowers just before jumping in the pool they made with all their effort. Even though these were just my speculations, they were the most likely scenario that lead them to their current self. I was still on that tree branch, watching the light of this creation. But I fixed my eyes on this thing, before my eyes that had suddenly made my heart run wild. I was being a fool, saying this is something all mages should observe, but for a second, the fact that I'm in the depths of hell slipped my mind. This was a grave mistake. The slimes that seemed smart to me were utterly foolish in those same eyes now. The fact that negative energies have to be filtered before the use of dead mana was unknown to these foolish mobs. And I was the bigger fool for not understanding this thing earlier. But now, it was already too late. It has started and I can't move. I cannot. My legs were stuck to where I was standing as if someone had stuck them with powerful glue. I was feeling the same familiar feeling I had felt with countless creatures these past years. Fear, dread, helplessness, and that shitty sticky feeling. The same negative feeling of corruption. This shitty slime had now become something I can't explain, even with words. The 9 blobs of translucent slimes were now a creature of horror movies. They had already absorbed all the blood, limbs, and bones left in the pool before the light went out. The creatures that were just 1 meter in size were now something that looked down on me, even though I was standing on a tree. It was a 10 meters tall monster of flesh and bones, covered by a thick, sticky membrane. Sticky energy was oozing out of his body, and it had a smirk on his face. This was a pure demonic creature, unlike anything I had seen so far in this forest. This was an atrocity, created by the foolishness of these lowly slimes. This was a humanoid form, but the tentacles-like thing coming out of his back made this creature a pure monster. Dead mana aside, these slimes did something out of common sense. Those bastards of slimes adapted to those negative emotions and fully embraced the evil, becoming evil themselves. I had no idea what the hell just happened or how they can even do such a mind-boggling thing, but one thing was sure. The creature before me was at least green, rank demonic beast in a sane form. Not the mindless or berserk form, but the sane form like actual demons. This shit was a newborn demonic creature. Damn. Seals. Go in. This is an order. But master. That evil thing. How? Where? She was in a mess from the moment things went wrong. This time, my heart was late to inform me, or was I just amazed that I didn't notice? I had done something useless this time, making my situation worse than most of the things I can think of. The creature had fully mutated, and now it was looking down on my struck self. I don't know what this thing grabbing my legs was, but it was something similar to those blood-red tentacles. The smirk on that hollow face was so creepy my beating heart was going berserk. Seals, go right now, I shouted, and she understood the situation was different from all our experiences. She was angry and sad that she couldn't do anything for me in this situation, and after this order, she won't be able to come out until I order her to. She felt helpless in this moment of danger where the creature before us was just gawking at me with his void eyes. I could feel her helplessness right now, but the creature before us not only had me in his hand, but it was also something that can sense and perceive anything that had red blood. Appraisal. Race, blood demon slime. Strength, 123. Dexterity, 134. Stamina, 132. Magic power, 119. Intelligence, 76. Skills, blood spears, vital fluid detection, red hands, black restriction, mana drain. My mana was getting drained by these black tentacles like hands, and I knew this was going to be an impossible thing to overcome. Just seeing those exaggerated numbers of a newborn was something that sent shivers down my spine. An attack skill that condensed blood particles from its body, a detection skill that can find any creature with vital fluids, so our disguise skill that just made out physically different. The black hands that restricted me were ominous in themselves, and I could feel the dead mana oozing from them. The draining of mana was fortunately not faster than my regeneration speed, so I was fine for the time being. But the speed of the drain was increasing, and I knew I won't stand a chance against something that had adapted to negativity completely. This was a demonic creature, and I'm doomed. The situation right now was something I never had to face in the past, but I at least had an idea that something like this might happen. I was being restricted on a tree, and my mana was being sucked out of me. So, the skills that I had saved all this time will be the important ones in this situation. Shadow Dive. I vanished and freed myself from the restraints of these black, mana-sucking hands. Going back, I prepared my weapons for the scariest fight I would have to do in my life. My whole life, because the chances of me dying here were 90%. The highest odds of death I had faced in my time. I had been to this god-forsaken hell. This was torture in itself, and aside from me, if that slime with dead mana radiating hands had touched anyone, it would heavily poison them and they would almost be on the verge of death. It was a difficult thing, and I had to do anything in my power to at least save my life. This was a dark forest, and I had 2 dark-related skills. Though it can easily see my disguise and perceive me, it can't do anything in my shadow dive form. I dived into the shadows and can travel some distance, so I had a pleasant situation before me. The other skill, Nightfall. It was an orange-ranked skill that I got after killing a Nighthound, a darkness-type dog monster with deer-like horns. It was an easy opponent against my light arrows, so I could get this special skill. Nightfall. Create a dome of darkness around your 30-meter radius. You will enter a realm of assimilation and mix with these shadows. Mana, 30. Time 1 minute. This was also a skill that saved me many times in this forest of darkness from creatures like that crying spirit I had seen the first time entered this place. Now, I had 9 skills, including the skill stone I just got. That protection skill that creates barriers was also something I needed in this situation. If I could, I was desperate to just run away from this death-guaranteeing place at this very moment. But this bastard skill, those bloody spears, was something that worked as a border, too. Just like my skills, I can check others' skill information to some extent with appraisal, so this was a bigger threat than I was reacting. This slime was as strong as Gar the Orc in terms of pure strength. And this was still in the normal state. If I'm destined to die today and this shit creature goes berserk, I was sure I will die any moment I looked away. The plan was simple now. Just keep dodging his attack and try to get as far away from this place as possible. Though he was definitely going to chase me, I will have more space to fire my arrows here. And, the most important thing, destroy his nucleus at all costs. If I can. Nothing will hurt this partial immortal piece of shit, but it will die in an instant if I destroy its core. This was something that was showing its giant red body like he was proud of it, and that black core in the chest area was something that clearly entered my eyes. Though fake, it was a focal point to find the constantly moving core inside his body. This was a difficult one, and, by its movement patterns, I might figure out his death point. Well, all those things had to be done during my time I run and make distance with this monster. Here goes my potential life. The slime that was now a monster had a disgusting voice, and just hearing that one made me noxious. This was something like his trait, and knowing all this after the preparation was a bad thing. Bad. Very bad. Shit. I cursed and took out a glass bottle with yellow liquid from my dimensional storage. This little thing will at least block that stomach-crunching feeling from his voice. Motion Potion, Beginner. A potion created with light and water attribute flowers with adequate mana. Helps to maintain the stability of internal fluids. I was almost at a beginner level in potion making, something that I had close to no profound knowledge about. Well, there were many useless potions in my white crack that came into existence during my boredom and the kick of doing something. I should remember them later if I successfully survive this monstrosity. Looking at this creature with a disgusted look, I took out my bow as I exited the shadow on the opposite side of him. His perception was acute, and as I predicted, the moment I came out, a red spick of blood shot towards that very place. Quick step. This time I was all right, and this fight was in my favor in one thing at the very least. His intelligence was almost as high as mine, but I had a better understanding and thinking ability than this mass of flesh and dead mana energy. This creature was just not going to go down by normal means, and I was not going to die by his hands. This was the very being I was admiring. A creature that I saw for the first time in this great forest, and then, the creature that I consider beautiful, turned into a monster that coveted my body more than anything right now. I knew why it was doing that, and, once again, I remembered just how precious my body is. Every beast was after this small body with hunger oozing out of their eyes. Well, sure, I had a well-built, toned, muscular body with abs. This was definitely a body other girls would fall for, but beasts like them had no stake in this. I wasn't into them, not even a little. If I do decide to give this body up, I will do so after using every bit of my strength. Not for the one I might find in the future. That will be different. If I do survive this fight and live to tell the tales to her, that is. Swish. Quick step. Swish. Quick step. And so, the cycle continued, and I dodged the blood-red spicks coming out of thin air or ground or directly from him. The creature before me was almost a 10-meter-tall demonic beast, and the best way to deal with this one would naturally be through the light elemental attacks. But I can't just rely on those to pierce that thick body of blood and reach its core. I needed power. Pure power that can pierce through thick trees or smooth bodies like this creature. Now, this was the time I used the resources I gained to get away from this chick that wanted my sweet body. I'm not saying these words in the wrong way, so please, try to understand this little kid who was facing death itself. Once again, that disgusting voice. This was the horn of his debut as a newborn demonic beast. Why was this creature so hell-bent on killing me when I admired its beauty? Was I the fool here? Or did the world itself have some kind of plot to force me in? A spike of blood flew toward me and I dodged it with another quickstep. Channeling my mana, I activated some spells to help me in this fight. Body reinforcement, speed enhancement, passive earth detection. Using 3 tier 2 spells at 1 was difficult, but I was now confident in my ability to control this mana, and I also had the cheat fruit, and my spells were special. Different spells activated at a speed that would shock normal magicians. This was a spell activation method that only I can do because of my special mind that can't forget anything. As if already crafted spells, I created full memorized versions of some spells and stored them in my head as if storing a pre-coded magic scroll. Though the amount of concentration required to make this was large and I could only use 3 such spells at a time, this was worth it. This was a technique and I had named it script magic. A script of spells that the mind had already processed and all the process has been already completed. I wasn't some genius in magic. I can have unique ideas, but it limited them to my otherworldly knowledge. If said in this world's perspective, I was just a very good mage. That aside, I cannot use magic in the fight this quickly. My processing speed wasn't that unimaginable. I was an enormous hard drive with a good CPU. But I was no supercomputer who can process spells on the spot and use them with very little concentration and will. This type of magician was out there, and this wasn't even the most horrific type. The most dangerous magicians had an amazing affinity with mana, that they just had to command it. Then mana would follow their will without actual knowledge of spell or magic. Those were the monsters that were the center of the magic community of this world. Some people like them were also teachers of the Magic Academy, as well as students. These students held great interest from the magic community, but those side things weren't something to think about right now. First, let's escape. Quick step. Boom! An explosion rang and this whole place I was standing on went into tatters. These blood spears could now blast? Shit! There was a reason for my endless cursing. A bloody spear had just blasted near me, and what would you think I would do in this situation? Well, that aside, the spear of blood was not some straight spick like a needle. It was a spear with multiple curves, and this one, in particular, has just scattered small needles all over the place like rain. Damn. Looking at the hand that's just been filled with bloody spicks, I bit my lips. This was painful. The poison in it was not effective to me, but the pain it induces was something that I could hardly bear even with my heart keeping me calm. There was pain, and I was thankfully focused on this battle. Aside from the unexpected factors like this one, I was fully okay. Shadow dive. Vanishing in the shadow after meeting eyes with that creepy smile of demonic slime, I was even more anxious. There was no time in this battle, and all I could do was hide for a bit and run as far away as I could before hiding again. This fight was dangerous, but I had to do everything I could. I shot an arrow with wind attributes that were full of high mana materials. Something that created a small whirlwind around it and the surrounding air bent to its will. Surprised, the slime extended his hand forward and a wall of blood and bones rose before it. The bloody wall and tornado collided, and the arrow successfully pierced the wall. This was something like a giant skeleton covered with red jelly rose in his hand. Another crimson wall rose and the green winds around an arrow pierced it like a drill. The blood from the wall rained and my arrow worth a red, beast core and many materials had gone to waste. The arrow struck the spot where the fake core was, but it didn't penetrate its skin. This very skin looked like some edible jelly, but it was blood red. Its toughness had far surpassed some thick magical armor. I had to find his real core if I wanted to kill this monstrosity. This was slime, and I at least knew that I can kill it even after those absurd stats. The stats that it gained after losing all the natural bounds it possessed and becoming something that only looks after destroying the nature that it had stayed in all this time. This was my first time seeing it, but when some beast accepts the negative energy and the dark things it carries, a beast that can do that becomes a demonic beast. A demon that destroyed nature, but this was no stranger. I was before a creature that was using his demonic skills. Nature was still strangely not as devastated as they mentioned it in books. This was something I never knew why happened, but This entire forest was naturally opposed to this demonic energy. Well, that aside, the core that I was so desperately trying to find was something that will take much longer than I can think. That thing will never lose interest in me, not after seeing me, with a high natural affinity, who carried natural treasure such as this golden pendant. This was a demon that can feel at least my natural affinity if not the fruit. What I had to do here was once again very clear. Just find the moving path of that core and then destroy it with a powerful spell or, if possible, the missile arrows that would be left after the fight. Boom! Another spike blasted, but this time I had a wall protecting me. Earth Wall. This spell was always effective, but even with all my boosts, I cannot use attack spells while still maintaining the auxiliary and enhancement spells. I had to wait for my mana to stabilize at a certain limit for as long as I could. If that limit were to be crossed, it would mean the fight had entered a critical stage. Quick step. This fight was gonna last the longest, but I really didn't want to fight this thing that I was sure to lose. Let's run as fast as we can, I said under my breath and started running. Running was the only plausible option before me, but if I didn't have a choice, I had to find that roaming core in his giant body and destroy it while keeping myself alive. I knew this hell was never going to be easy. Boom! An explosion rang in the dark forest of the Great Forest of Kamet. This was now a common occurrence that has been happening for the last few days. Some explosions, some small blasts, an endless smell of blood, and the weird atmosphere of the forest. The big plants were fine, but the smaller ones were dead in the almost middle parts of this forest. A monster so big it was visible from the ground and passed through the trees was something that induced fear just while being present in that area. This weird creature that looked ferocious as well as demonic was something that has been chasing a boy with black hair and black eyes for a long, long time. Though the creature had a thick membrane of red blood around his skeleton body, there was a distinct, furious expression on his face. The pressure coming out of his body was close to that of a berserk, blue, ranked beast and was still increasing. This was ferocious, and now there was bloodlust around him. Thick bloodlust that was visible to bare eyes. The pressure was unbearable, and all the smell was so noxious that breathing was a challenge in itself. Things were getting destroyed, and this creature was getting stronger. Looking back, a miserable child was hiding in a tree hole. This was a critical situation for him too, as it bathed him in blood. That thing painted his whole body in blood, scars, and small holes that were taking a long time to heal. The necklace around his neck was glowing in gold, and his breathing was heavy. His left arm had some deep cuts that even the bones were visible from it. The flesh and blood that filled this small place in that short time were large. If not for the natural healing ability and the peculiar necklace around his small neck, he would have been passed out by now. This was a dire situation, but there was clarity in the boy's eyes. Something that a normal warrior experienced in wars was flashing in his eyes. He was cleaning his deep wound with something in a glass bottle, but the pain when the green liquid touched the fresh wound was so... Slime demon! I shouted with utter agony when the healing potion touched the clean, deep cut that showed my arm bones. This was crazy as hell. No, even more than that. This bastard was the most persistent one that I had faced in all my life. 6 days. It has been 6 days since this creature had chased after me for God knows what reason. He chased after me while understanding new things about his powers and all the new possibilities of his unique blood skills. He was crazy. Just fucked up. Crazy. He killed all the creatures that came in his path, from unranked ones like tiny insects to creatures like green, rank. Yes, this bastard killed a green-ranked creature. And not just one, but many. And he also killed one just some moments ago. A white light wolf. A light attributed, gorgeous creature with blue fur and shining white eyes. This was a creature of light, and this bastard killed that beauty in 9 spikes. That bastard. I can't even take that super rare, precious body of a pure creature of light. That slime demon devoured everything it come across like they were nothing in his endless stomach. That thing with that filthy smirk was not something I wanted to look for even a minute, but that piece of trash had learned something new a few hours ago. making blades of blood instead of normal spikes. Blades that are strong enough to chase the target like some targeted missiles which only dissipate when coming into contact with the target. For a creature possessing so small intelligence, its learning speed was extraordinary. That skill that helped them in adaptation was the scariest thing in this whole dark forest I had seen. No ghost, corrupted creature, those blood and gore, or those disgusting natural chimeras could be compared to this unreal ability. And there was more to this one than the normal adaptations of slimes. I didn't understand at first, but after fighting this thing for a week, I was now certain. This adaptation was at least 3 times more powerful than the normal slimes found outside of this forest. This one can adapt to things that cannot be explained in normal means and gain the abilities of non-elemental things just like right now. Blood? That was no normal attribute. That was something that was either innate like the nobles of night, the vampires, or something that comes from skill. Aside from that, there was no attribute specific to blood. But this creature had it. They used blood to first become the base blood slimes and then mutated together into something that was totally different from an energy beast. Adaptation to negative emotions and the demonic traces in those specific things? That was too specific, and the chances of this happening should have been in decimals. But these slimes, these specific slimes of this dark forest, were the only ones that successfully did it. Now, they were something that was destroying everything in its path while chasing me to God knows where. Shit! I cursed and jumped out from the small hole in the blue tree that was still hopefully intact. Taking out 6 arrows from my dimensional storage that were some of the last remaining enchanted ones, I shot them with the quick-fire technique. All these arrows were doing was helping me find the exact path of the core circulating inside this slime's body. Every time I successfully hit this bastard body, the jelly part that the extreme force hadn't torn apart despite its power would resonate with the whole body. This was the moment its core would be visible on the surface of its outer body, and then I mapped it inside my head. I was almost there and I could feel it, but I needed a bit more than just these arrows. I needed more power than the one that I had, and I needed some time. I needed an enormous gap unlike these small ones. I was fighting this thing for the last 6 days without rest, without sleep. Thankfully, I did eat some things in between these fights that made me at least more focused here, but this was not good. I might be okay without sleep for most parts, but the mana and concentration that I was recovering with the resources that I had was very limited now. If this fight continued for a day or two, then I was as good as dead. And I wanted to deny this fact with all my might. Holy Mother of Slimes, take this bastard away and let me live. I prayed as I landed on the ground. It devastated the surrounding area. The ground was tattered, and there were craters all over the place. The trees were cut or crushed, and only one creature with immense pressure was standing in the middle of all this devastation. This creature, though it was tall, oozed a death indicating bloodlust and an unparalleled angry look. It was now smiling. I was before his eyes after 6 hours of chasing after he killed that white wolf. Though the arrows were still midair, I could clearly see that. I could see the abomination left behind by him, as well as the distinct smirk that reminded me of the first demonic creature that we faced. This happened without my knowledge, as I was resting in this small place that brought back some unpleasant things. The bastard used to be just a filthy wretch. But now he's more than that. He has lost his sanity, and now, it was berserk. Right now, my death was looking down on me. There was a pool of blood on the spot where this creature has just walked from. No, this wasn't a pool. A pool was something this monster was born from. The thing that has already entered my eyes was something more than just some small pool. This was a river of blood that was something I couldn't even fathom. This was something horrific. Dead bodies of creatures laying on the ground had disintegrated. These creatures were eaten from inside, and only shells or skin were left. Just like its nature, this monster was eating things inside out. Not even that white wolf, that beautiful creature some kilometers away, looked something humanly observable. That gut-wrenching thing before my eyes was something I would pay to forget at this very moment. This creature was born from an unsightly thing, and it was going around creating unsightly things. Why? Why me? You bastard! I cussed and saw as the 6 arrows finally collided with the slime's body perfectly. And, as expected, aside from a ripple in his fluid body, there was nothing. No scratches, no wounds. Not even that jelly on its surface had fallen. Unlike the last few times, this was different. At first, this creature was at least having some effects, but now, this did not affect him. He was now turning unstable from the berserk energies that were already stabilized inside him. The creature was now angry, and I was the reason to make him this way. I can feel it. This was strength. The unmeasurable strength that I knew I can't face even if I tried with all my might. This catastrophe has already crossed creatures like the 3 elders of Fern's family, and now, this piece of trash was as strong as the golden deers. Indigo. Strength of that level that every beast desired, but they knew that wasn't what they could achieve, even if they tried. But this creature, these slimes, monsters that are used as practice subjects and wander the open streets of human domains, was something that had embraced those dangerous desires. It desired and embraced the darkness, demanding to achieve that accursed strength. It had lost an important part of itself, and its end wouldn't be something that even it couldn't think of. It would die soon, but it was dead set on killing me before those that took care of this nature punished it. That would happen soon, but I had to survive. I had to survive not only from this creature and the creatures that would come after this. The creature shouted in an unsightly voice that made my insides wiggle once again. That medicine I took at the first hearing of this sound was now over. I had to endure this even more intense voice that most possibly wounded my internal organs. Ahem! I coughed a mouthful of blood and drank the remaining potion in the last remaining bottle of potion on me. This was an advanced healing potion, and it was my last one. Now, I had no healing potion. Now, if I received something like this injury, I knew I would have no choice but, let's not think about it. Myself aside, if Seals hears something like this, I knew what type of expression she would make. Thankfully, she was locked in her mark and I knew she could feel me, but couldn't see what was happening here. I knew she couldn't handle this. This was for the best. I was now done for. But just giving up was neither my style nor a good plot if I really was some character. Let's start, you bastard. With a war cry, I shot backward and started running as fast as I can, using Quickstep at the full power and the other skills too. The enraged slime was paused for some time in the time it was going through this berserk thing. Looking back was no option. I had to save my life with all the things I can. And I already knew this all was futile against the creature that had the attack range in kilometers. I felt something on the right side and took a sidestep while running on the straight road. The area had lesser trees, but this was still a jungle of night. The dark forest that I was seeing in its full glory. Having some skills was a curse too. This mana vision, an owl's ability that always looked at the dark forest in vibrant colors. Well, this passive skill was the same as my recording mind. It was always on and didn't have to work like a spell and consume mana as much as the night vision spell. That spell might be better than this skill, but, well, forget that. On my side, there was a black blade. Bloody hell. I wanted to look back at this very moment. I wanted to look back and see the now berserk creature that just threw this dead blood like black blade. Though fluid, this thing was as sharp as a real sword. Crescent in shape, this blade was a black moon of death. I wanted to look back at the creature, but it didn't have any need of it. I was still running, but my heart has given the signal of something being terribly wrong. And I knew what it was from the sudden fountain of blood. Ah! I screamed and bit my lips as I fell to the ground. This one was fast. So fast I didn't even have time to react to this one. White blade. Damn! White blood cells can be faster. I mumbled under my breath and tried to stand back up before another such attack came my way. Ah! This was difficult and, if not for my hesitation in taking another step, I might have cut both of my legs this time. I was alive this long thanks to my heart, but this situation was now difficult. Even if I didn't want it, there was a deep wound on my lower leg. And this was also on the left leg, so the pain was more than I could endure. It already drenched me in blood, and now, one more deep injury. I had tattered clothes, and the berserk look of this monstrosity entered my eyes. Goddamn! The thing before me was not a lowly slime anymore. Not that it was ever since I laid my eyes on that gruesome pool of blood. It was confirmed. I was magnificently coursed. The creature that had a jelly-like blood-red membrane around a bone skeleton was now fully something that I can call a demonic beast. Its size had reduced, and it now had a body of black, white, and red flesh. This thing was something like the Carnage. The big white thing that looked like eyes were covering half of its face. The long, sharp, endless teeth in his mouth and that long tongue. This was no slime. But they were definitely smiling. A delighted, mindless smirk would be more appropriate. Ah! If not for being calm and thinking straight, I might have already thrown up just from looking at that disgusting thing. It has shrunk down, but now there was something of big muscles on his body. That might be something that he threw this blade with. The thing that was only a magical attacker until now could now do physical attacks. Physical attacks? A horrified look suddenly clouded my face as I looked at the distinct smirk of that berserk demonic creature. Now, it had no restraint, no mind, nothing to think about. It would go rampage with a single goal in its mind. Destroying me. Eradicate the target that he had set in mind before letting go of all its sanity. Quick step. Quick step. Ah! I dodged the first, but the second one was more thought out than I had thought. Berserk had increased his intel, and now, it was fully accustomed to the patterns in which I avoided his attacks. Thankfully, it was still a low-intel creature, and avoiding the future attacks might be easy, just if these cuts can heal. The cuts were from some kind of white blood, and I can say that this contained some light properties? That bastard. Did it absorb the skill stone from that wolf or something? I didn't know just how strong this monster was, but I knew it had crossed many limits. Holy Mother of Goblins. Why were these things happening when I had least expected them? The cut this time was not that deep, and with the fruit's healing power, I can at least recover from it. But it was still taking much longer than potions. Biting my lips again, I jumped on a tree before me. Now, there was an open path with trees on both sides. This path looked natural, but that wasn't important right now. As I ran, I could see the outline of the creature running with its 4 legs after me. This was like some kind of carnivorous creature running after its favorite prey. It had a joyous expression, and the white things he was throwing my way were generating on his back 3 at a time. The creature would jump in the air and throw all 3 of them with its solid muscle strength. This strength was so horrific it cut the trees I had just jumped from down into pieces. The same trees in this great forest had unnatural strong features and were falling like sticks. They were like a piece of simple woods cutting down against a boomerang of a chainsaw. The blood from my wounds was giving it an even higher perception to accurately attack me. I was able to avoid most of them, but some did grace me gently. Those times were hellish, as the pain from these weird blades was more severe than I can take. I didn't have any leeway of doing deep thinking at this moment. I have been covered in life-threatening wounds, and it already painted my vision red. All the arrows that I had wasted to find its core were now meaningless. There was no way to win against something like this one. Something that had a physique like something of a physical monster instead of something like a slime. My magic arrows were doing nothing, and I knew those missile arrows will also do nothing in the face of this monster. There was light ahead of me, light in this forest of darkness. But I had lost too much blood. Thud. I fell from the tree branch I was standing on. I had lost all strength, and now, even my mana was depleted. I had little mana to use only one skill, and after that I would be dead. All the scenarios I had made inside my head were on the verge of falling apart. But, no! I shouted and tried to get myself up. My hands, body, legs, everything was covered in blood, scars, and God knows what. As I fell to the ground, it didn't take even half a minute for the ground to become fully strained by blood. I didn't know what this was, but I had a useless feeling of helplessness. But I was still alive. Luckily, looking at this monster wasn't easy, but I was looking, and it had slowed down. It had a pleasing smile on its disgusting face, and it was licking half of the face with that long, blood-red tongue. Those white eyes reminded me of a fictional character from my previous world that was the same nasty-looking as this monster. This thing was still 6 meters in height if it stood up, but walking on all 4 legs like that lizard, it was the epitome of horror. Well, doing the last attempts to survive was important, right? Shadow dive. Shadow curtain. I fall back as far away as I can, and at the end of this ride, I don't know why, but there were 2 peculiar trees. I didn't know what they were, but having a tree with a white trunk, blue branches, and orange, red leaves were something I wasn't accustomed to seeing in this black place. But that wasn't important right now. Quick step. I hurriedly used the quick step, but it was too late. Ah! My left leg was now hanging by only some skin tissues.
No.
God damn it! I jumped with my remaining leg and used Shadow Dive with my last mana. When will this life-saving shield activate? I shouted in the shadows and tied the fallen leg with some glue and cloth, which was definitely the clearest idea I could think of in this situation. I was now dead, and there was nothing ahead of me. Would you believe someone in such a situation could survive? I had done my last attempt, and this was still not enough. I am no story hero. Ah, sorry. Sorry, Mom. I couldn't keep the promise. I had no strength left in this body, and my mana was almost rock bottom. The skill duration ended and I fell to the ground, lifeless. In a large room decorated with fancy paintings, sculptures, and flowers, they set a large table up in the middle. Many people were gathered in this place and sitting quietly in their places with serious expressions. No one was talking right now, and except some individuals, everyone seemed on edge. This atmosphere was quiet, and there was clear tension in the room. Every person in the room had fabulous clothing, and most of these people were men. Though there were some ladies, they were only 10 against the 50 men sitting with complicated faces. From the looks of things, all these people were waiting for someone. The room was luxurious, and the charm of all these magnificent things was relatively low. Everything was extravagant but normal. This time was early morning, and the light from the large windows on both sides of the large windows illuminated the entire room. The air was tense, but there was a calmness in it, as if the air itself was waiting for something to change in this closed room. Everyone was quiet, but no one dared to speak in this place in front of all the people present here. Except one fool. Where is Madam? It's already late. If we wait some more, then we might have problems. Someone in the room said, and just after his words, they bombarded him with furious glares. As if the one that spoke was a buffoon, everyone else in the room looked at him with contempt-filled eyes. There was clear worry in everyone's eyes after the name Madam has spoken to break the still silence. Some in this room were confused, but there was still a worried look in their eyes as they looked at the one has spoken just now. It's okay. He's a new person, so he doesn't know much. He will understand after this one. This voice was filled with certainty, and this was a dignified famine voice. This was the voice of a lady with short brown hair and a splendid outfit of nobles. Nobles, as it was clear from her magnificent looks that this lady was not like some of the most normal people present in this room. There were 2 men standing behind her in knight armor, like most people present. But this differed from the other escorts. These knights had shining armor that seemed magical and swords that looked to be filled with magic itself. This differed from many other normal knight armors that were only shining normally. Everything aside, it was clear that all these people in this place were merchants or someone connected in business. The alluring lady was confident in her speech despite many looks that asked, "How would a new person know? Countess is right, everyone. Master is busy with something else. Unlike us, there are much more things she has to take care of." This was a male voice, but it was old compared to most of the voices present. This was the calm voice of some of the few calm ones that had been calm in this tense situation. After this voice spoke the fact, the room that has brightened up for a moment went back to the quiet one in an instant. The old man on the other side of the previous lady was someone that everyone here knew, just like the lady. The lady on the left side held a higher rank than the old man on the right, and it was clear that the 2 of them agreed with each other. There was calmness between these two parties, and that also reflected that they were on common ground. The old man was wearing a blue outfit that was the most luxurious in the room present, and his dark blue eyes matched this suit perfectly. His white hair showed his old age, but, at the same time, the lack of guards or knights also showed his fearless manner. There was just a young attendant on his right side that held a peculiar cane with a similar crest as his clothes. A lion, and more specifically, a white lion crest that symbolized the holy beast of similar features. This was the Viscount Glory, the elder in the room, someone with the most experience as a merchant and a subordinate of the one all were waiting. He was a merchant, but at the same time he was a tier 4 mage. The cane was his magic wand and, just like the crest on his heart, he was a lion in their industry. On his other side was the Countess, and the newest person to rise at exceptional speed in this empire's market. Someone that stood alone and earned the title of a countess, meeting finding the love of her life. The weakest count family's head. Someone that didn't have much authority, power, or wealth, found someone like her, or they found each other. The end result of this was the power structure change in the lower significant nobles. That was one thing, but she was still not someone who stood with the master all were waiting for. There was still time as she was new, and there were many things for her to learn, but, at least, she knew if she wanted to last in this empire's trades for longer, she had to be one with the person in waiting. The sudden wealth and popularity attracts wolves, and she wasn't someone that could give in to such people. She was at least wasn't as new as the ignorant person who has just spoken up. She knew the meaning of just being at this place and on this table with someone that has yet to show up. The person they were waiting for, the master of the biggest auction house, the leader of the third-ranking merchant alliance, and someone that had the most power in the whole empire when it came to certain things. She had created an empire in 2 years. An empire of something no ordinary merchant could think of. An empire of trade, and particularly an empire of peculiar foods. That aside, all the large trades that happened within this great empire had ties with this person. She had power in trades, so she had money. She also had power in the military, holding forces to command at her words. She was the daughter of a hero and someone already known throughout the continent. If she, as a rising power in this ferocious empire, had to be under someone, it would be no one but this person. Just like the Viscount sitting on the other side of her. He was someone that had been a part of this empire's economics for the longest in this room. He was sitting here, but there might be many things going on under his commands at this very moment. He was a subordinate as well as an elder of the Merchant Alliance, holding the highest rank in this meeting of new and aspirant merchants. All things aside, the gates were opening up, and this was the signal for every person's percent. Captain. At once, everyone stood up from their seats to greet the esteemed one of this gathering. The one that some called master, some lady or madam, while for some, she had earned a special title in these past years, the Golden Demoness. The doors to this large room were bigger and unique in themselves. This was no ordinary place, and every single person present couldn't do anything in this place, even if they wanted to. This was the Grand House of Heliox. A house, a mansion of the glorious hero and someone that was known throughout the continent as the Golden Hammer. And this door had a peculiar crest of a core divine beast. A bird, a beast, a mixture of those and something known throughout history as one that ruled the winds and earth. This was a griffin, a creature of a lion's body and an eagle's head. Something that ruled not only the sky but the lands, too. A creature that was known throughout the world for being something that appeared in times of different causes. This was a creature that can roam skies, lands, and places that weren't to be known to humanity. A creature that made a partner of a lifetime and then created a home to live a peaceful life. A creature of power and strength, but the meaning of this crest, this creature that believed in protection more than anything, showed the meaning of the name itself. The one that all were waiting today, the one that had created a name of her own. A name separate from this house, or the achievements of her father. She was the Countess of a warm place.
Lady Nolen Heliox von Aster Griffin.
Known by many names, the title of Countess that she had received just last year resulted from her achievements. Result of her longing and selfishness. All of this was excessive, and if looked at from a normal person's point of view, The things she had done in the last 3 years after her return to the capital were greater than anyone had done in decades. From creating something that defied the common nature of today's restorers and making food that seemed otherworldly, available for every person in the empire. That thing that she called food joints was something so new to this world. Just the idea of such a place being true was unreal. She did all these things, from stabilizing the falling of her merchant alliance to making it greater than it had ever been in that short time. She did all these things despite being a mother of a newborn, as well as a mother that had lost someone important to her. A mother that had lost something most important to her. She was a mother famous throughout the empire, and her son was someone that was written in children's storybooks as a hero. A child that had become a mage at the young age of 5 years old. If adults heard this story without proof, they would just brush it off like some patty rumor. But this wasn't something she talked about with words. She just created places where all can eat something new despite their status. She made something that was the idea of her beloved son, something her son wanted to be a reality. Her son that didn't even know his origin, had been lost in some place that no one knew about. All this time, she had held onto the hope in the form of the rare artifact of someone special. The rings that many lovers had, and something that showed if the other had been hurt greatly or if they were dead. She held onto this ring all this time, and the one with her through her journey, her husband, and the genius mage that had reached Tier 7, at such a young age shouldered her agony. They had a cute baby, but not many knew about that little one, as they knew little about the family of such a great person. The noble son that lived by the ideals of the House of Golden Hammer was now lost. But he didn't die in vain. He protected the family he cherished so much. He protected them from the bastard demon that had appeared in this empire. That incident had become the hottest issue and was talked about to this day. Those vile creatures couldn't appear in this empire, but some did in different areas of the outskirts. And one was taken care of by this family that was so unlucky to be in the same place at that same vile time. Now, things had changed, and the person once known as that foolish girl had become Golden Demoness. Her dear husband, the well-known red-eyed hunter, was granted the title of Viscount for his outstanding achievements these past 2 years in the discovery and exploration of new areas in the wild. He, as an independent adventurer, was someone that had the greatest future, and with the abundant resources he had from his dear wife, he was now closest to becoming the Tier 8 mage. That would be an event that many in this empire would look forward to, as those in Tier 8 had many paths they can choose. But this one fool father had done all the things for his lost child. He even created a magic array formation that can show the condition of soul fragments in the rings, like those with different data. Desperate situations and desperate parents give birth to things that had gone through unthought of all this time. The thing he created was the core reason for his title, but he, too, gave all the credit to his lost son. According to him, his son had shared many things and ideas of magic with him while doing experiments on enchantments. They did crazy stuff, and from that, he received inspiration for this impressive system. But building the magic device from the theory and magic arrays alone was the task that was only possible because the one that made it was also a well-known genius of the empire. The great magic engineer of Heliox. The successor and genius creator that had been known throughout the lands for his prowess in creating magic equipment. Though different from artifacts, they were the inferior version to them in working. So, even he had received the praise of the whole magic engineering community. These three had done their best, but there was no rumor or sign of them finding this lost one-of-a-kind genius. But there was a rumor circulating that the demoness had been in her room more than usual. And the thing that made these suspicious was that all the family would gather in the room with this magic device. Maybe the son that had been miraculously alive all this time was now. The doors opened and an alluring figure walked in with a dignified expression as well as eyes that seemed anxious. The doors opened and an alluring figure walked into the glamorous room. Wearing a dress of natural origin or wearing a nightgown, the lady with bright blonde hair walked into the room. The nightgown was luxurious, and the white color and the thick material of the cloth made it better than any dress worn by the people present in this room. As if all the circling air were her servant, She filled the surrounding air with authority. Despite the tired face that we couldn't compare to, she walked with dignity. She was as gorgeous as ever. Her clear eyes that looked normal contained charm-filled tiredness that was alluring in itself. She walked in, and the servant of the house, the head butler, and one of her guardians walked behind her. She just walked in and sat down with no care in the world, and after her, all the people standing in the place sat down after her command. Many bowed before sitting down, and she just gave them an indifferent look. This was different from her usual self, and those that knew this person could feel that she was not in the mood for ideal chit-chat. So, we should finish all the things at hand. I'm in no mood for doing the useless things, so Elder Glory would answer questions, she said, and the Viscount nodded. There was no point in something pointless right now, and if someone foolishly, "How could you do that, madam? We came all the—" This was the same person who had spoken earlier, and he was a fool. She eyed the person who had just spoken mid-sentence and looked at the butler behind her with annoyed eyes. He just nodded, and in the next moment the fool was not in the room. He just vanished before their eyes, as if he had never existed in this place in the first place, and different reactions filled the room. The Countess in the red dress just sighed while shaking her head, and the same was true for the Viscount. Some other new members that were not as foolish as him just gasped with cold sweat filling their backs. "Okay then, what was the first agenda?" she indifferently asked, as if the things that had just happened had never happened. The fear in the air was clear, but some didn't care about this, as they already knew what they were dealing with here. This was someone that had received the nickname of Demoness from the public. She was no normal person in the first place, and, according to their knowledge, she was the strongest person present in this room. Strong enough to make every mage and knight submit to her will. Her special power, authority, something that very few possessed, was more than enough to defeat a Tier 6 mage. She was strong, and her attendant and family member behind her was also a mysterious person who somehow was present with all the members of the family at the same time. No one knew his origin or what type of power he used, but all knew that this one grandpa before them was no less than the Demoness sitting on the throne-like chair at the far end of the table. This was her palace, and everything here belonged to her, and there was no need to deeply introduce someone we already knew about. For the first thing, this morning we will be hearing from the Countess, who has been rising in the clothing business in the Empire. The butler behind said, and a small light flashed in her beautiful eyes. "Oh, Countess Morgan? I wanted to meet you for a long time now. Hope you have the brief version of what you want and what can I have," she said in her alluring voice. Her words were filled with seriousness when she asked this question. She asked to make it short, meaning she didn't want this whole thing to be more than what it should. Her question itself contained meaning as great as a willow. Magnificent, but at the same time cruel. She just asked someone that was here to ask for help about what she can offer to her. This lady was a merchant, and something worried her at the moment. She asked what she wanted at the same time, so the answer had to be clear. This person, this noble lady in a luxurious nightgown, was someone that can do whatever she wanted in this place. She wasn't bound by anything, and all her strength was her own and no one else's. She was a scary woman that had achieved things that were recorded in books, and her knowledge and wisdom for money spoke for themselves. If she wanted, she can say the word, and everyone in this room would lose everything they had the very next moment. There was no need to even ask for a second chance if they did something foolish like the person a moment ago. That person would be safely reaching his home, but he should forget if he was thinking of coming to this place again. Now, that same Demoness was looking at the woman that was a rising star with minor curiosity. And her answer would decide many things for her today. "Greeting, Countess. As you said, I will make it short. All I can offer is 30% of my evergreen. And all I ask is your protection," she said with a vast, respect-filled voice, and then looked at the Countess, who had an intrigued expression. 30%? You think that's something I wouldn't be able to get if I said the word? She frowned. Her voice was still filled with curiosity, but there was no smile on her face. Her beautiful face. The smile of someone like her was something only fortunate ones received, and here, not many were worthy of such blessing. She was looking at the rising star that was the talk of the town because of her latest business and brand, as well as her talent. Her clothing shops were something that sold pre-made clothes, and her targeted customers was from the common folks to all the nobles that could be humble and enter the place. This business was a potential star, according to her, and if looked at from the merchant's point of view, this was the same thing she had done. Or, her son has theorized, would happen if done this way. Her son. This was the reason she wanted these shops owned by this lady. And, if looking for profits, this was the best offer a merchant could offer. Joining a merchant alliance was something different from joining a normal guild. But, at this very moment, she wasn't asking for the merchant alliance's protection, but for her, the one known as Demoness protection. This was something like directly asking to become a subordinate of hers, and she liked this direct, straightforward attitude of this woman. It was already decided that she was going to accept her, but she had to see her profits. She would try to get as much as she can as a merchant, but this was just a play. That is all I can offer, my lady. I have nothing else. This is my dream, just like the one you had. I might be being insolent here, but I want to keep this dream, and if I go any more than this, I won't be able to forgive myself. She was bowing, and this was a straight, brief answer instead of something like begging. She said many things in those sentences, and that much was enough to make this golden Demoness. Do you mean what you just said? Do you think you have what it takes to further what you have? Do you think that someone like you can be more than what you are? A great pressure engulfed the entire room. The weak ones that were sitting at the far end of this long table fall unconscious in an instant. Some sitting closer to her were holding up quite well, and the Viscount, as well as some others that were calm all this time, were still calm as if there was nothing different. This pressure was enough to destroy the glass windows, and some important things, like statues and paintings, got covered in a transparent shield. She, the person that was asked this question, was holding herself with great difficulty. She dug her nails into her skin to resist this mental pressure and started bleeding in this attempt. She had created her shop and her entire business with effort and advanced it like her own child. Now, there were hyenas after her baby like shops, and she was not going to submit to anyone, be it them or this Demoness before her. She wanted her protection, and she understood this was her trial. The master of one of the most powerful merchant alliances had something greater in mind. She was adamant, and there was nothing that was going to break her down. Her great mentality that had resisted this pressure had already passed her small test. She looked deep into her eyes and opened her pretty mouth to answer this demon-like person she had expected. She started, but everyone in the room flinched as they heard the loud footsteps coming towards this quiet room. Thump, thump, thump. A confused expression clouded everyone's expression, and, in no time, the door was blasted away. Boom! Nolan! A horrified male voice echoed in the room, raising the heartbeats of everyone present in the room. The door was obliterated by some kind of sharp winds, and the figure that had just walked out of this gate was something that shocked all the conscious people. The smoke cleared up, and a young man with glossy, shoulder-long hair reflected in everyone's eyes. He had a face that was incomparable to any young man present or they had seen. His simple face, glowing red eyes, and that muscular body earned audible gasps. Everyone knew who this person was, but no one had seen his face in person. Though they had heard rumors of his devilish appearance, no one talked about it for some unknown reason. This man was feared as Red-Eyed Hunter, as well as someone that earned the title of Viscount on his own. This was the person that had invented that marvelous thing called Soulgraph. Someone famous for being a ruthless hunter, a genius mage, and a proud father of a hero son. A husband that supported his wife while continuing the hopeless search for his dear son. His special discoveries had prospered the empire more than many presents in this place. He was also a father and the first cook for the things that were sold in the place that was famous in half of the continent. The first chef and father of a young one that has turned 2 this year. They looked at this man's unparalleled looks and the pink kitchen apron he wore that didn't suit the chaotic air around him. His eyes contained fear, and this was the signal for them. I would be happy if you keep everything to yourself, gentlemen, the Demoness said, more like ordered with higher pressure, and then started walking towards her devastated husband. There was a shock in everyone's eyes, and the heartbeats ringing in the silent area were audible. This was fear and helplessness against power. And there was nothing anyone could do for their wasted time on this day. Except one. She turned around hurriedly and looked at the butler quietly standing behind her. "Start the procedure that the Countess wants. Ask Viscount Glory if anything unexpected comes up. I want nothing in my way." This was her order, and the butler just nodded and bowed. She looked at the Countess, who had tears lingering on the ends of her eyes. Giving her a warm smile that could melt glaciers, she said, "I look forward to working with you, Samantha." The tears on the ends of her eyes slid down her clear, fluffy cheeks, and a warm smile appeared on her face. "It would be my honor, my lady. Please take care," she said, and bowed deeply while following noble antiquities. She was nobler than most ladies of noble households, and she was perfect for being a business partner. Nodding with a pleased expression, she continued walking with her husband. They hurriedly walked out of the doorless room, and as they reached the stairs, she forgot her dignified manner and started running upstairs. There were tears in her alluring eyes that were filled with fear, shock, and faith. She understood that her husband would only do this thing in one scenario.
"No.
"Ian, please, 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 don't," she said as she ran while clenching his hand with her full might. In a large room with no extravagant things, people were gathered around a complicated-looking thing. Half of the room was covered with a web-like magic pattern, and all of them were gathering around at the center. There were peculiar crystals at the edges of these spider web-like things, and in the center, many metallic machines were set up. This room was too big and covered half of the mansion's floor, and in that big place, the center that was a 6-meter radius circle, many metallic things were connected with some small magic circles. These small magic circles had a white light, and, if looked closely, there were small channels connecting all these circles. The metallic things were just normal-looking boxes of different colors on the outside. But the inside of these things was a mess of different cables, crystals, and shiny objects. This was set around a giant prism as a center, and this prism was also a unique object. Only magicians could sense it, but the magic circuits and formation this thing was made of were so complicated that replicating the same things was close to impossible in a short time. Those things that would require precise mana output and exceptional mana control were something that would be difficult to reproduce, even for a seasoned veteran creator. The transparent, glass-like thing had something written inside it. Aside from that, the metallic boxes had a floating screen that was showing many data and graphs. Aside from the thing written in the prism and some normal graphs, everything was too complicated for most people to understand. The people gathered in the room were focused on only two things right now. Their eyes were unblinking, and the sorrow and anguish in their eyes were so clear that just a look would be enough to tell their sorrow. The air in the room was tensed, and the heaviness was just growing as the time passed. Some numbers on the prism were going down constantly, and with each decrease, the hearts of the people present were sinking. The people present in this room were wearing their nightgowns as if the first thing they did was gather around this giant machine. The older couples clenched each other's hands in great fear. 2 families of 3 with mom, dad, and their children hugging them with tears in their eyes. The couple was gorgeous, just like the older couples. The young girl with red hair was holding her dad's hand like her mother, while still keeping her eyes on the prism. The opposite was happening on the other side. A boy with green hair and peculiar eyes was holding his mom with his dad from breaking into tears. This room was always occupied by someone, but right now all of them were gathered here, and 2 more were coming. Thumb, thumb, thumb. The parents of the one they monitored in this giant room were running towards this room. Their footsteps were echoing, and everything was so calm that even the footsteps that were on the floor below were as clear as the next room. The fear and anxiety were evident in those footsteps. All eyes were only focused on one thing, the decreasing numbers on the crystal prism. "How's it?" What the male voice that echoed in the slammed open room suddenly stopped when his eyes fall on all the data on these screens. The graph was slowing down, and the line that was constantly going up or down was slowing and becoming straight. The numbers in prism were being painted in red. Current soul state, severe. 536/1000. Current soul status, critical. 305/1000. The alluring lady with blonde hair beside the man fell to the ground with her hands covering her mouth, her eyes wide open. Tears were falling uncontrollably from her gorgeous eyes. She fell to the ground and the red numbers became crimson red. The room fell silent and only voices of silent cry echoed. Eyes were filled with tears, throats filled with sorrow, hearts fallen from the grace, and only one voice, different from all, now dominated this grave room. Warning! Warning! Soul state, extreme critical. 96/1090/1084/1000. Host has lost significant vitality. Soul has fallen into an extremely critical state. Meaning, the host is wounded beyond help. The mental-body integration might begin any moment. Warning! All graphs were turning red and aside from a few that showed the will calculated from the data, remained green. It was still stable, meaning he hadn't given up just yet. There was a strange curve that signified the use of some powerful skill, but it was now normal, but the normal was still not enough. The unbending will wasn't faltering one bit, but the calculated physical state was as good as a corpse. No vitals continued to calculate, and even the hypothetical mana value was fallen beyond possible. They knew when soul stat fell below 100, it would mean the soul disintegration would begin. Though this was just early morning, this room had become the dark morning graveyard. Screams filled this room, and tears flooded the floor. The agony in the voices was insurmountable. The suffering of hearts was endless. All was gone. Thurian was now actually gone. Or at least he was until the numbers fall to 69/1000. Then, some graphs started working again as if the dead were resurrected. And all these graphs were increasing at a speed that seemed unreal by any mortal means. This was sudden, but this didn't escape from the sharp eyes of desperation. Abnormal vitality detected. Revitalizing in process. Physical and mental body condition reevaluation. Conditions reevaluation. Soul state hurt. 669/1000. A miracle! An aged male voice echoed in the room, and everyone turned their eyes to the new data. A sudden surge of calmness filled their heart with a light of new hope. This light was more bright than what they had wanted, and that was for the best. Something unreal has just happened, and all of them have witnessed it. This was no normal thing, but, all aside, there was just one thought filling their crying hearts. The sun has yet to fall. In a dark forest filled with a sinister smell of blood, the devastation was the only thing in sight. Trees were destroyed, the land was devastated, and the air was filled with something that only reminded me of death. In all this chaos, a giant creature of dark crimson, black color, and while eyes that were filled with only hunger, were staring at the ground. There was something that couldn't be thought of alive anymore. His leg was almost cut off, and the skin holding that leg was just there as a show. This creature had made this boy like this. Whatever it was, the desire to kill, destroy, or just pure instincts that lead this monster to do this, the monster was happy with the outcome. There were countless cuts on the boy's body. Big, small, deep, life-threatening, all kinds of wounds were covering his bare body. There was nothing to protect him, and this creature was just standing there waiting for the last remaining spark in this boy's eyes to fade away. His eyes, those dark eyes carried hatred towards this creature, this fate, and towards himself. His eyes were the most alive thing in him, and there was nothing clearer than his mind in his body. He was doing nothing, and the blood gushing out of those wounds was severe. His body was lifeless, but the wounds on his body were at least healing at a speed that was not normal at all. As if a strong healing spell was at work, this boy was waiting for something to happen in his almost lost time. The creature was looking at him as if he was watching something that was finally going to become his. As if something he had waited for a long time. His eyes had greed despite the chaotic air around his body. This creature was berserk, and this creature wasn't doing anything to the almost dead prey. This was strange, but, at the same time, The grin on his face was deepening with each passing second. The boy was doing his best to keep his eyes open and continue breathing. His throat was filled with blood, but he was holding the desire to let go of that blood, fearing it might go in the wrong pipe and kill him earlier than it would. The special necklace with a unique golden fruit was shining right now, and there was some kind of light reaction going in that thing. Looking closely, this fruit was something even more surprising than one could think. This fruit wasn't the only thing that was moving in his body. The bracelet around his wrist, the metallic silver bracelet with blue patterns, was glowing. This was the sign of the mana running through the bracelet and activating the magic device. The wooden bow around his back, something that was a special gift from an elder ent, was also reacting. These reactions were happening in unison, indicating the very last try of this dead boy. His eyes were black just like his hair, and because this dark forest became a strange, open area, we could see the rays of the sun on the far horizon. This was something very different, as there was something this forest lacked the most. A dark forest of dark trees and darkness blocked all the light from the rising sun. For the creatures living in this dark place, the sun was something they could barely see, and the sunlight was something only the lucky ones that wanted to die could experience. But, thanks to this monster, creatures that were alive, mostly tiny insects, were able to burn in the rising sunlight. It had cleaned the area up, and we could see the faraway things from this place. The jungle was still the same dark forces, but there was something that attracted the attention of all the things present. Two trees stood out the most in the distant dark forest. As this was a straight road, the trees were positioned as some kind of gateway. But that wasn't important for the one on the verge of death. Yes, it was important to reach this peculiar place if nothing else, but there was still light in those bright eyes. He was almost dead, but the spirit hadn't given up on life just yet. There was still something this person could do, and he was going to do just that this time, too. And the creature that was slowly looking down at this corpse's sudden smirk noticed something going on in his hand. There was nothing a moment ago, but now there was something in those blood-painted hands. The same hands that were clenching his body a moment ago were now clenching something that looked strange. Strange, but interesting. The creature that was previously been a slime was now a demonic beast, but he was still the same creature, so he still had his skills. And he couldn't sense anything but pure energy in that thing. He couldn't see in that blood-filled hand, but there was a small shining crystal ball-like thing in his hand. This was a small ball, and silver star-like things were shining in it. This was easy to recognize, even for someone that had seen it for the first time. This was a ghost core, something of pure energy. A condensed mass of the same pure energy that the ghosts were made of. The boy was smiling while crying the tears of blood from the insurmountable pain. The same boy that still had the same burning passion for living. He wanted to live even while knowing that his body was beyond saving. His body, something that all girls would fall for, that same desirable body, was now something no one would want to look at. The gruesome mess of a body that was strangely alive against the world's rules. That strange will was something that no child, not even the most normal creatures of the world, should have. But, aside from that strange ball of shining stars, there was nothing important for this creature of blood. The demonic creature was smiling as it looked at the beast's core, and the deep smirk on his teeth-filled face became a sign of madness. The creature had gone mad from the new type of pure energy that the boy had just taken out, and it was enough to make this berserk beast mad beyond reason. He took out the blades from his back in a hurry, as if there was nothing more important for this thing than that small ball of stars. But the blood-filled mouth of the boy made its last crescent smile as he coughed up all the blood with his last words. "You bastard! Ahem! You bastard!" The carnage of a creature raised his hands, holding white blades, and attacked with all the force in his strong, muscular arms. This dominant force was enough to make a hot gust of wind, and then, boom! With a sonic boom, the creature attacked the smiling boy. An explosion rang and shook the whole earth around it. It spread a shock wave out as the collision point was its epicenter. This was normal, but this intensity was something that was a rare sight. Something was attacking a boy, and a strange light was blocking his giant hands. His giant hands held the peculiar white daggers with black and red mixed in both hands. This creature had attacked with all his might, and this was something that should have been impossible to block. This was an attack from a higher, purple, ranked creature. Blocking something of this caliber completely should have been impossible, even for something of the same rank. But the attack had been blocked, and this peculiar light that had made a protective barrier around this boy did this. A golden barrier strong enough to block the attack of such a creature. An attack that threatened its already passed away life. This was a boy, but calling this a corpse was more appropriate than anything. Just the fact that he could still breathe and be conscious was amazing, as this was something unreal. He was smiling. This damn corpse was smiling. This was a smile of the one that had countless regrets and the eyes that yearned for many things. But the glowing white ball of stars was something that told a different story of this fallen soul. Something was going on in this place, and this boy was at the center of it. The bow by his side was slowly disintegrating. The energy from the core was getting channeled through his body, and he was doing something. This something could be called the final gratitude of a loyal survivor. The last try of a brave knight. Something that few possess and something that most couldn't do, even after facing death countless times. This boy was doing the last he could, and this last was draining all he had. His mana core might not handle this, but it wasn't important in the face of death. Life was giving up on him, but he still wanted that life. His smile was miserable, and this last thing was the very last thing he could do. A skill. Something that would use a certain power to activate the predestined result. A powerful skill could do many things, and something was going to happen in this area filled with abnormalities and disaster. But that didn't change the fact that death was evident for this boy. The death. The process where the soul becomes one with nature. And the process was already ongoing for this boy that was on the death's door. His body was cold, the blood was slowing down, and his always calm heart was slowing down. The Reaper would be waiting for him. Nature was inviting him, but his middle finger was mocking the death too. Even on the flower-filled deathbed, he wasn't done with life. The life that had many things more than this demon ahead of him. His mocking of death and the decision of the world were a sight to behold. This damn bastard, boom, the hungry demon, lost to madness, didn't stop after his first attack. The explosions continued, and the creature repeated his useless attempts at breaking the unbreakable shield. This was no normal light, nor was the shield something ordinary. The shield of an ancient tree's gift, and it was a piece of art. The magnificent light, the design, and all the things about it were gorgeous. If only this boy with blood-filled eyes could see this, he would admire it again. Just like he did all his life, just like he did with the slimes that took his life. He was an admirer, and that was just what he was. There was nothing that could change the fact that this bastard had done more than anyone his age could. His flower-filled life turned into dark thrones, but he kept going. The damn demons separated him from his lovely family, but he didn't break. He ventured the hell in the hopes to see the light. The light, like hope, was his salvation. Now, this child would never achieve what he wanted. His last attempt was fatal. To him and also to the creature attacking him. But the smile on his face didn't fade away even after he was at the death's doors. Sure, he couldn't see anything, but his eyes contained the same light they had from the start. He wanted to live. He wanted to survive. He wanted to go back and reunite his beloved parents. There were many things he wanted to do, and one of them was playing with his little sibling. The little one he never got to see. Would that one be a good kid or something special like him and his parents? He wanted to know this before dying, before leaving them. This was his second life, and it was on the edge of the end. He didn't know how they would be, but at least they were better than his almost dead self. Well, he was on the death's door, but now the dying light had sparked once more. "Go away," he shouted while coughing another mouthful of blood, and something started. A magic circle too complex to be called magic started appearing at the speed unbefitting of magic. This was, without a doubt, a skill. The last skill he might be using in his whole life. a skill enough to use all the power from the glowing core and the wooden bow. This was a powerful skill and also something he could only use once at the price of his dear bow. His bow he had used in this dark forest all this time and something that had saved his life. The bow was a gift, and its purpose was going to be fulfilled. A tear of blood slid down his bloody eyes and the heart that was beating heroically skipped a beat for the first time.